The morning sun streamed through the lace curtains of Maya's childhood bedroom, casting dancing shadows across the wedding dress that hung like a dream on the closet door. She had been awake since 4 in the morning, her heart beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. Today was the day she had been planning for 2 years. Today she would marry Alex, the man who made her laugh until her stomach hurt, and who still brought her coffee in bed every Sunday morning. Maya's fingers traced the delicate beadwork on her grandmother's vintage dress. The same dress that Nana had worn in 1962, and her mother had worn in 1985. The cream-colored silk still felt as smooth as water, and the tiny pearls sewn along the neckline caught the light like stars. When Nana had pressed the dress into Maya's hands 6 months ago, tears had filled both their eyes. 3 generations of love, Nana had whispered, her weathered hands shaking slightly as she touched the fabric. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made Maya's stomach flutter. Her best friend Lily burst through the door, already dressed in her soft pink bridesmaid dress, carrying a tray with steaming coffee and toast cut into heart shapes. Behind her came Maya's mother, looking elegant in her navy blue outfit, her eyes already misty with emotion. "The big day is here," Lily squealed, setting down the tray and immediately going to the window to check the weather. Perfect blue sky, not a cloud in sight. "Even Mother Nature knows this is your special day." Maya's mother sat on the edge of the bed and pulled her daughter close. "Your father is downstairs pacing like a caged tiger. He's been ready for an hour, straightening his tie every 5 minutes. I think he's more nervous than you are." The 3 women laughed, and Maya felt some of her morning jitters fade away. This was what she had dreamed of. Her family, her best friend, and in a few hours she would walk down the aisle at Riverside Manor to marry the love of her life. She and Alex had visited 12 different venues before falling in love with Riverside Manor. The old estate sat on a hill overlooking the river, with huge oak trees that created a natural cathedral and gardens that looked like something from a fairy tale. It hadn't been cheap. In fact, it had cost more than Maya and Alex had originally planned to spend on their entire wedding. But the moment they saw the stone archway covered in climbing roses and the sweeping staircase where she would make her entrance, they knew it was worth every penny. Alex had picked up extra shifts at the fire station, and Maya had worked weekends at the flower shop to save the money. Her parents, both teachers at the local elementary school, had contributed what they could from their modest savings. Alex's parents, who ran a small auto repair shop, had insisted on paying for the flowers and photography. "Remember when we first went to look at venues?" Maya said, sipping her coffee and thinking back to that exciting day 8 months ago. "Alex was so worried about the cost, but when he saw how your face lit up looking at that garden, he was sold," Lily reminded her. "He told me later that seeing you happy was worth more than any amount of money." Maya smiled, remembering how Alex had taken her hand as they stood on the manor's terrace, looking out over the river. "This is where I want to promise to love you forever," he had said simply. That night they had called the wedding coordinator and put down their deposit, even though it meant eating ramen noodles for dinner more nights than they cared to count. The planning had been a whirlwind of decisions and details. Maya had spent countless evenings at her kitchen table, surrounded by bridal magazines, fabric samples, and her laptop, carefully tracking every expense in a spreadsheet. She had made her own invitations, handwriting each address in silver ink. She had shopped at 3 different stores to find the perfect shoes, finally settling on a pair that was comfortable enough to dance in all night but elegant enough to match Nana's dress. Alex had been just as involved, surprising Maya with his attention to detail. He had spent hours researching photographers, wanting to make sure every moment was captured perfectly. He had even learned to fold napkins into swans for the reception tables, practicing until his fingers could do it without thinking. When Maya asked him why he cared so much about napkin folding, he had grinned and said, "Because you'll remember these details 50 years from now, and I want them all to be perfect." The guest list had been another careful balance of budget and heart. They had invited 140 people, mostly family and close friends. Maya's entire extended family was coming, including her great-aunt Rose, who was flying in from California, and Alex's college roommates who had promised to behave themselves during the ceremony. The hardest part had been keeping the numbers manageable while making sure no one important was left out. "Are you nervous about the speech?" Lily asked, starting to arrange Maya's hair accessories on the dresser. Maya had decided to speak her own vows, something that made her both excited and terrified. She had written and rewritten them dozens of times, finally settling on words that came straight from her heart. A little, Maya admitted, but when I look at Alex, all the nerves disappear. It's like the rest of the world fades away, and it's just him and me. She had practiced the vows in front of her bedroom mirror so many times that her mother joked she could recite them in her sleep. A knock on the door interrupted their conversation. Maya's father's voice came through the wood, unusually formal. "Maya, honey, could you come downstairs for a minute? There's someone here from the venue who needs to speak with you." The three women exchanged glances. Maya felt a small knot form in her stomach. Venue coordinators didn't usually make house calls on wedding mornings unless something was wrong. She slipped on her robe and fuzzy slippers, her bare feet suddenly cold against the hardwood floor. Downstairs, she found her father standing in the living room with a young woman in a business suit who looked deeply uncomfortable. The woman's face was pale and she kept glancing at her phone as if hoping for a miracle. "Miss Rodriguez," the woman began, her voice shaking slightly. "I'm Jennifer from Riverside Manor. I'm afraid I have some very bad news." She paused, clearly struggling with what to say next. "There's been a terrible mistake with our booking system. Another wedding was scheduled for today the same time as yours. Their contract was signed 3 months before yours, and according to our legal department, we have to honor their reservation." Maya felt the room spin slightly. The words didn't make sense at first, like hearing someone speak a foreign language. What does that mean exactly? She heard herself ask, though her voice sounded like it was coming from far away. "It means," Jennifer said quietly, "that your wedding cannot take place at Riverside Manor today. The other party has already begun setting up, and their guest list is much larger than yours." "I'm so sorry. This has never happened before in our venue's history." Maya's mother gasped audibly and her father's face turned red with anger, but Maya just stood there, feeling like someone had pulled the ground out from under her feet. In 3 hours, 140 people would be arriving at Riverside Manor for her wedding, and there would be no wedding to attend. Maya stared at Jennifer from the venue, waiting for her to say this was all some kind of sick joke. But the woman's pale face and shaking hands told a different story. This was real. Her wedding day was falling apart before it had even begun. "How is this possible?" Maya's father demanded, his voice rising with each word. "We have a signed contract. We paid our deposit months ago. You confirmed everything just last week." Jennifer pulled out a folder with trembling fingers. "The other party, the Wellington family, they have a contract that predates yours by 3 months. Our booking system had a computer error that didn't show their reservation when your date was confirmed. We only discovered the mistake yesterday when their wedding planner called to confirm final details." Maya's mother sank into a chair, her hand pressed to her chest. "Yesterday? You knew about this yesterday and you're telling us now? 3 hours before the ceremony?" "We spent all night trying to find a solution," Jennifer said desperately. "We called every venue in the city. We offered to pay for alternative locations. But everything is booked solid. It's wedding season and Saturday appointments are impossible to find on such short notice." Maya felt like she was watching this happen to someone else. The living room where she had opened Christmas presents as a child, where she had gotten ready for prom, where Alex had asked her father for permission to marry her, now felt like a courtroom where her dreams were being sentenced to death. "What about our deposits?" Alex's voice came from the doorway. He had arrived early to help with last-minute preparations, still wearing his workout clothes from his morning run to calm his nerves. His face went from confused to horrified as he took in the scene. "All deposits will be refunded immediately," Jennifer said quickly. "Plus, the venue is prepared to offer additional compensation for the inconvenience. But that doesn't solve the immediate problem of where to hold your ceremony." Maya's phone started buzzing with text messages, her cousins asking what time photos started, Alex's groomsmen confirming the meeting location, guests who had traveled from out of state, already checking into their hotels, excited to celebrate. Her great-aunt Rose, who had flown in from California despite her arthritis making travel painful, was probably already getting dressed in her hotel room. "We need to call everyone," Maya whispered, the reality hitting her like a physical blow. "We need to tell 140 people that there's no wedding." Lily, who had followed Maya downstairs, immediately went into crisis mode. "Okay, let's think about this logically. We have a guest list, we have phone numbers. We can divide up the calls and get everyone notified before they leave for the venue." But Maya was thinking about more than just phone calls. The photographer who had blocked out his entire day, the musician who had turned down other gigs, the catering staff who had been preparing food since dawn, the flowers that were probably already being arranged in the venue that was no longer theirs. What about the other family? Maya asked suddenly. The Wellingtons. Do they know about the mix-up? Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. They're aware there was a scheduling conflict, but they've chosen to proceed with their wedding as planned. Their guest list is much larger, over 300 people, and many of their attendees have traveled internationally. They've also spent significantly more on their event. Maya's father's face turned an even deeper shade of red. So because they have more money and more guests, they get priority? That's not how contracts work. I understand your frustration, Jennifer said, but legally their contract takes precedence because it was signed first. Our lawyers have confirmed this. Alex sat down heavily on the couch next to Maya, taking her hand. She could feel him shaking. Whether from anger or shock, she couldn't tell. This was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives, and instead they were sitting in her parents' living room discussing legal precedents and refund policies. We could try the park, Alex said quietly. Riverside Park has those pavilions. Maybe we could get a permit. Lily was already on her phone, Googling frantically. Park permits require 48 hours notice minimum for events over 50 people, and even if we could get one, there's no way to get chairs, tables, sound equipment, everything we'd need in 3 hours. Maya's mother was calculating out loud. The caterer, the flowers, the photographer, the musicians. Even if we could find a location, how do we move everything? And what do we tell people? Sorry, the wedding is now in a park pavilion with no decorations, no proper seating, and no backup plan if it rains. The phone rang, making everyone jump. Maya's father answered with a heavy voice. It was the florist calling to confirm the delivery time for the bridal bouquet and centerpieces. Maya watched her father's face as he explained the situation, saw him age 10 years in the span of a 2-minute conversation. More calls started coming in. The photographer wondering about the timeline for family photos, a bridesmaid asking about parking at the venue. Each ring felt like another reminder of how many people were about to be disappointed. Maya stood up suddenly, walking to the window that looked out onto the street where she had learned to ride a bike, where she and Alex had shared their first kiss on her front porch steps 3 years ago. She could see neighbors starting their Saturday morning routines, walking dogs, getting newspapers, living normal days while her world fell apart. I need to get dressed, she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. Maya, honey, her mother said gently. Maybe we should focus on making phone calls first. No, Maya said, turning back to face the room. I'm getting dressed in Nana's wedding dress and we're going to figure this out. I'm not calling 140 people to tell them there's no wedding. I'm calling them to tell them there's been a change of venue. Alex stood up, understanding immediately. The church, he said. We could call Pastor Williams. Maybe he could fit us in for a simple ceremony. Lily was already dialing. St. Mary's has that community hall next door. It's not fancy, but it's big enough. Maya's father was looking at his daughter with pride and amazement. You're sure about this? It won't be the wedding you planned. Maya looked around the room at the people who loved her most in the world. Jennifer from the venue was still standing there awkwardly, clutching her folder like a shield. Phone calls were still coming in from excited wedding guests. Her beautiful dress was hanging upstairs, waiting to be worn. The wedding I planned was about marrying Alex surrounded by people we love, Maya said firmly. The venue was just the backdrop. We can change the backdrop. But even as she said the words, Maya felt her heart breaking a little. She thought about all those evenings spent planning, all the money they had saved, all the details they had agonized over. The stone archway covered in roses, the sweeping staircase, the river view where they had dreamed of taking their first photos as husband and wife. Alex squeezed her hand. Are you sure? We can postpone. We can wait until we can find another venue that feels right. Maya shook her head. Nana is 89 years old and she flew here from Florida specifically for today. Your grandfather is 92 and this might be his last chance to see you get married. Half our guests are from out of town and have already taken time off work. We're not postponing. We're improvising. As if summoned by her words, the phone rang again. This time it was Maya's grandmother, calling from her hotel room to say how excited she was and asking if there was anything she could do to help. Maya's mother took the call, stepping into the kitchen to explain the situation privately. Maya could hear her mother's voice getting higher and more strained as she tried to explain what had happened. She could hear Nana's shocked responses through the phone. Another person who would be disappointed. Another dream that had to be adjusted. But then Maya heard something else. She heard Nana laughing. Actually laughing. The same joyful sound Maya remembered from childhood visits. Her mother came back into the living room with tears in her eyes, but she was smiling. Your grandmother says that when she got married in 1962, it poured rain and they had to move the reception into the church basement. She says some of the best weddings are the ones where nothing goes according to plan. Maya felt something shift inside her chest. Maybe this disaster could become something else. Maybe this could become the story they would tell their children someday about how their wedding day didn't go as planned, but ended up being perfect anyway. She looked at Jennifer, who was still standing there looking miserable. We'll need our deposit back today, and I want a written apology and explanation for our records. Jennifer nodded eagerly. Of course. And again, I cannot express how sorry we are. This should never have happened. As Jennifer left, Maya turned to her family and Alex. Okay, she said, taking a deep breath. Let's plan a wedding. We have 2.5 hours to pull off a miracle. The next 2 hours turned Maya's family home into mission control for the most important rescue operation of their lives. Phone calls were flying in every direction. Lily had appointed herself communications director, armed with the guest list and her laptop, sending out emergency emails and text messages to everyone on the wedding list. Change of venue, she typed furiously. Wedding ceremony now at St. Mary's Church, 2 p.m. sharp. Reception to follow in Church Community Hall. Dress code unchanged. Love and excitement unchanged. Drama level significantly increased. Maya's father and Alex had driven straight to St. Mary's, where Pastor Williams had been more than happy to accommodate the emergency wedding. The church had a Saturday afternoon opening due to a last-minute cancellation, which everyone agreed felt like divine intervention. The community hall next door was available too, though it would require some creative decorating to transform it from a space that usually hosted bingo nights into something suitable for a wedding reception. Maya's mother was on the phone with every vendor, explaining the situation and trying to redirect deliveries. The photographer was relieved because he lived closer to the church anyway. The musician said she could easily move her equipment. The caterer was stressed but agreed to deliver to the new location, though the menu would have to be simplified. Meanwhile, Maya sat in her childhood bedroom, finally putting on Nana's wedding dress. The silk felt cool against her skin, and as she looked at herself in the mirror, she could almost see the generations of women who had worn this dress before her. The beadwork caught the light just like it had that morning, but now it felt like armor instead of decoration. You know, she said to Lily, who was helping with the tiny buttons down the back. I think I'm actually okay with this. Lily paused in her button fastening. Really? Because if you want to have a complete breakdown, this would be the perfect time. I've got tissues and chocolate in my purse. Maya laughed, surprising herself. I thought I'd be crying by now. But honestly, the venue never mattered as much as I thought it did. I just want to marry Alex. Down the street from the church, a man named Richard Chen was sitting in his car, making phone calls to cancel his afternoon meetings. He had planned to spend Saturday reviewing acquisition paperwork for his latest business venture, but something he had witnessed 20 minutes earlier had completely changed his priorities. Richard had been driving to his office when he saw a young woman in a wedding dress standing on a front porch, surrounded by people who were clearly in crisis mode. He had pulled over, thinking perhaps someone needed medical help, but instead he overheard pieces of a conversation about venues and canceled weddings and emergency phone calls. As the founder of a tech company that had grown from a college dorm room project into a billion-dollar enterprise, Richard had learned to recognize opportunity and crisis in equal measure. But more than that, he had never forgotten what it felt like to have dreams that seemed impossibly out of reach. 20 years ago, Richard had been a college student working 3 jobs to pay tuition, sending every extra dollar home to help his mother pay rent on their tiny apartment. He remembered the stress of having big dreams but no money to make them happen. He remembered what it felt like when life threw you a curveball and you had to completely change your plans. When Richard's company had gone public 5 years ago, he had promised himself that his wealth would be used to create opportunities for others. He had started a scholarship fund and donated to various charities, but lately he felt disconnected from the individual impact of his giving. Today, watching this bride handle her crisis with such grace and determination, something clicked into place. Richard made a phone call to his assistant. "I need you to find out everything you can about St. Mary's Church on Elm Street, and call the Grand Plaza Hotel. Tell them I need their executive event coordinator on the phone immediately." Back at Maya's house, the logistics were starting to come together, but the reality of the downgrade was setting in. The church community hall was clean and functional, but it was a far cry from the elegant ballroom they had originally planned. The tables would be folding tables with paper tablecloths instead of linen. The decorations would be whatever they could quickly gather from family and friends. Maya's great-aunt Rose called from her hotel, offering to bring all the flowers from her hotel room's arrangements. Neighbors started showing up with tablecloths, candles, and anything that might help transform the community hall. Alex's groomsmen arrived with power tools, ready to help set up whatever needed setting up. "This is actually kind of amazing," Alex said when he called Maya from the church. "I've never seen people rally together like this. Mrs. Henderson from down the street just showed up with enough homemade cookies to feed an army. And you know Mr. Peterson, who never talks to anyone? He's here with professional-grade string lights that apparently he uses for his Christmas display." Maya smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the afternoon sun streaming through her bedroom window. "Maybe this is better than what we originally planned." "The photographer just arrived," Alex continued. "And Maya, you're not going to believe this, but someone donated flowers. Like professional wedding flowers. Enough to decorate the entire church and hall. No one knows who sent them, but they're gorgeous." Maya frowned, looking at Lily, who was listening to the conversation on speakerphone. "That's weird. All our flower orders were supposed to go to Riverside Manor." "These are different flowers," Alex explained. "More expensive than what we ordered. The delivery guy said someone called this morning and arranged for a full wedding package to be delivered to St. Mary's, paid in full." Before Maya could respond, her father's voice echoed up the stairs. "Maya, there's someone here to see you." Maya and Lily exchanged glances. If this was another venue coordinator with bad news, Maya didn't think she could handle it. She walked downstairs carefully in her dress, holding the long skirt to avoid tripping. In the living room stood a man in a simple navy suit, probably in his mid-40s, with kind eyes and an easy smile. He didn't look like a vendor or a wedding coordinator. He looked like someone's neighbor, except for the expensive watch and the confidence that suggested he was used to solving problems. "Miss Rodriguez," he said, extending his hand. "My name is Richard Chen. I hope you'll forgive the intrusion, but I witnessed your situation earlier today and I'd like to help." Maya shook his hand, confused. "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" "We don't," Richard said. "But I was driving by when I saw your family dealing with what was clearly a wedding emergency. I've taken the liberty of making some arrangements if you're interested." Maya's mother appeared from the kitchen, her phone still in her hand. "Arrangements?" Richard smiled. "I've contacted the Grand Plaza Hotel. Their Crystal Ballroom had a last-minute cancellation this afternoon, and they're prepared to host your wedding reception immediately following your ceremony at St. Mary's. Full service, complete with catering, flowers, music, and anything else you need." The room went completely silent. Maya felt like she was hearing words in a foreign language again, just like when Jennifer had first delivered the bad news. But this time the words didn't make sense because they were too good to be true. "I don't understand," Maya said slowly. "The Grand Plaza is the most expensive venue in the city. We can't afford that." "You don't need to afford it," Richard said gently. "Consider it a wedding gift from someone who believes that love should be celebrated properly." Maya's father stepped forward, his expression protective. "Sir, we appreciate the gesture, but we don't accept charity." "We pay our own way," Richard nodded respectfully. "I understand completely. But this isn't charity. This is one person helping another during a difficult moment. 20 years ago, when I was struggling to build my business, complete strangers helped me when I needed it most. Today, I'm in a position to pass that kindness forward." Maya looked at Alex, who had just walked in from the garage where he had been loading wedding decorations into his truck. His mouth fell open as he heard the tail end of the conversation. "You're offering to pay for our wedding reception at the Grand Plaza?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm offering to ensure that your wedding day is everything you dreamed it would be," Richard corrected. "The venue was just a building, but the celebration of your marriage, surrounded by everyone you love in a space that's worthy of the occasion, that's what matters." Maya felt tears starting to form, but for the first time all day, they were happy tears. Why would you do this for strangers? Richard's expression grew thoughtful. Because I've learned that wealth without generosity is just numbers in a bank account. And because watching you handle this crisis with such grace reminded me of what really matters in life. You didn't scream at the venue coordinator or blame each other or give up on your dreams. You adapted and found solutions and kept focusing on what was important. That kind of character deserves to be celebrated. Maya looked around the room at her family, at Alex, at Lily, who was staring at Richard like he might be an angel in disguise. She thought about the morning that had started with disaster and seemed to be transforming into something magical. Are you sure about this? She asked Richard. You don't even know us, Richard smiled. I'm absolutely sure. The only question is, are you ready to get married in style? Maya stared at Richard, trying to process what was happening. An hour ago, she had been planning a simple ceremony in a church community hall with folding tables and paper plates. Now this stranger was offering her the wedding of her dreams at the most luxurious hotel in the city. I need a minute, Maya said, her voice shaking slightly. She walked to the kitchen and Alex followed her immediately. Behind them, she could hear her parents asking Richard gentle but pointed questions about who he was and why he was doing this. In the privacy of the kitchen, Maya leaned against the counter and looked at Alex. This feels like a movie. People don't just show up and offer to pay for strangers' weddings. Alex nodded, running his hands through his hair. It's incredible, but Maya, are you comfortable with this? I mean, we don't know anything about this guy. Lily is already Googling him, Maya said, glancing toward the living room where she could see her best friend frantically typing on her phone. But Alex, what if this is real? What if we could actually have the wedding we dreamed about? They could hear Richard in the living room, patiently answering her father's questions. His voice was calm and respectful, and Maya found herself trusting him instinctively. There was something about his manner that suggested he was used to making big decisions and following through on promises. Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, her eyes wide. Okay, I looked him up. Richard Chen, founder and CEO of Chen Technologies. Net worth somewhere in the billions. He's known for philanthropy. Has a foundation that helps small businesses get started. This guy is legit. Maya felt her heart skip. So he really could afford to do this. He could probably buy the entire hotel if he wanted to, Lily said. But Maya, that's not the point. The point is why he wants to help you. Alex took Maya's hands. Whatever you want to do, I'm with you. If you want to say yes to this, we say yes. If you want to stick with our plan for the church hall, we stick with that. This is your day. Maya closed her eyes for a moment, trying to imagine herself walking into the Grand Plaza's crystal ballroom in Nana's dress. She had driven past that hotel so many times, dreaming about what it would be like to have an event there. The ballroom had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, crystal chandeliers, and a dance floor that looked like something from a fairy tale. I want to say yes, she whispered, but it feels too big, too much. Maybe, Alex said gently. Some gifts are meant to be accepted with gratitude instead of questioned. They walked back into the living room, where Richard was showing Maya's parents pictures on his phone of his own daughter's wedding from 2 years earlier. Maya's mother was smiling for the first time all day, and her father's suspicious expression had softened considerably. Mr. Chen, Maya said, if we accept your incredibly generous offer, what exactly would that include? Richard put his phone away and gave her his full attention. The crystal ballroom is yours for the evening. Professional catering with your choice of menu, flowers, music, photography enhancement if needed, and transportation for your wedding party. Basically everything you would have had at your original venue, but elevated. Maya's mother gasped softly. The transportation alone would cost more than our monthly mortgage payment. Mrs. Rodriguez, Richard said kindly, money is just a tool. Today I want to use that tool to make sure your daughter has the wedding she deserves. Maya looked at Alex, who nodded encouragingly. She looked at her parents, who were trying to hide their amazement. She looked at Lily, who was practically bouncing with excitement. Mr. Chen, Maya said formally, Alex and I would be honored to accept your gift. The next hour passed in a whirlwind that made the morning's crisis seem calm by comparison. Richard made phone calls that seemed to move mountains. The Grand Plaza's event coordinator arrived at Maya's house within 30 minutes, bringing fabric samples and menu options and a level of service that Maya had only seen in movies. The ceremony at St. Mary's would proceed as planned at 2 p.m., But now professional photographers would capture every moment, and a quartet of musicians would provide live music. Immediately following the ceremony, luxury cars would transport the wedding party to the Grand Plaza, while the guests would be shuttled over in comfortable coaches. Maya's phone was buzzing constantly with confused but excited messages from wedding guests. The news of the venue change had spread quickly, and everyone wanted to know how they had managed to secure the Grand Plaza on such short notice. Maya decided to let the mystery remain for now. The catering manager wants to know about dietary restrictions, the event coordinator said, consulting her tablet. And we need a final head count. 140 guests, Maya said, still not quite believing this was happening. And my great-aunt Rose is diabetic, so she'll need sugar-free dessert options. Not a problem. Our pastry chef specializes in dietary accommodations. Richard, who had been quietly coordinating logistics on his phone, approached Maya and Alex. I hope you don't mind, but I've taken the liberty of upgrading a few other elements of your day. Maya raised an eyebrow. What kind of upgrades? Well, Richard said with a slightly mischievous smile, your honeymoon. I understand you were planning a weekend at a local bed and breakfast. Alex nodded. We couldn't afford anything more elaborate. How do you feel about a week in Hawaii instead? I have a house there that's sitting empty and my assistant has already arranged the flights. Maya sat down heavily in the nearest chair. Mr. Chen, this is too much. I don't understand why you're doing all this. Richard's expression grew serious. Maya, may I tell you a story? She nodded and he sat down across from her. 25 years ago, I was a college student with big dreams and no money. I was trying to launch a software company from my dorm room, but I couldn't afford the equipment I needed. One day I was in the computer lab, frustrated and ready to give up, when an older student I barely knew overheard me talking about my project. Richard paused, clearly remembering that moment vividly. This student, David Kim, asked me what I needed. When I told him, he said he had some old equipment he wasn't using and would I like to borrow it. Turned out his old equipment was actually brand new. Top-of-the-line computers and software that he had purchased specifically to help students like me. Maya listened intently, beginning to understand. David told me that success wasn't just about what you achieved, but about how you used your achievements to lift others up. He said that kindness creates ripples that spread far beyond what you can see. Richard smiled at the memory. That borrowed equipment helped me build the foundation of my company. David passed away 5 years ago, but before he died, he made me promise to look for opportunities to help others the way he helped me. Maya felt tears in her eyes. So you're paying his kindness forward. Exactly. And Maya, watching you handle this morning's crisis with such grace and positivity, seeing how your family and friends rallied around you, witnessing the love between you and Alex, it reminded me of why David's philosophy mattered so much. Alex leaned forward. How do we ever thank you for something like this? Richard stood up, straightening his jacket. You don't thank me. You live a happy life together, and someday, when you're in a position to help someone else during their difficult moment, you remember this day and you pass the kindness forward. Maya stood up too, smoothing down her wedding dress. Mr. Chen, would you do us the honor of staying for the wedding? I mean, as our guest? Richard's face lit up with genuine pleasure. I would be absolutely delighted. As Maya looked around her living room, transformed now into a staging area, for what was about to become the most incredible wedding day she could have imagined. She felt overwhelmed with gratitude. The morning had started with disaster, but somehow that disaster had led to this moment of unexpected magic. Her phone rang, and she saw Alex's name on the screen. Where are you? She laughed. I'm at the church, and Maya, you need to see this. The flowers that mysteriously appeared, they're everywhere. The church looks like a garden, and the Grand Plaza just delivered chairs and decorations that are more beautiful than anything we could have dreamed of. Maya looked at Richard, who was pretending not to listen to her conversation while clearly coordinating more surprises on his own phone. Alex, she said, I think we're about to have the wedding of a lifetime. Maya, Alex replied, his voice full of emotion. I think we already are. The ceremony at St. Mary's was more beautiful than anything Maya had dared to imagine that morning. The ancient stone church had been transformed with thousands of white roses and soft lighting that made the stained glass windows glow like jewels. As Maya walked down the aisle on her father's arm, wearing Nana's dress and carrying a bouquet that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, she felt like she was floating. Alex waited at the altar in his navy suit, his face shining with joy and disbelief. When their eyes met, everything else faded away. The morning's chaos, the stress, the last-minute changes, none of it mattered anymore. They were here, surrounded by everyone they loved, about to promise to spend their lives together. "You look incredible," Alex whispered as Maya reached him. "You clean up pretty well yourself," she whispered back, making him laugh and helping both of them relax. Pastor Williams had known them both since they were teenagers, and his ceremony was personal and heartfelt. When Maya spoke her vows, the words she had practiced so many times in her bedroom mirror, her voice was steady and clear. When Alex promised to love her through whatever challenges life might bring, including chaotic wedding days, the entire congregation laughed through their tears. Richard sat in the back of the church, watching with the satisfaction of someone who had just witnessed something truly special. During the service, Maya's great-aunt Rose had leaned over to him and whispered, "I don't know who you are, young man, but you've given our family a miracle today." The reception at the Grand Plaza exceeded every dream Maya had ever harbored about her wedding day. The crystal ballroom looked like something from a movie, with cascading flowers, elegant lighting, and tables set with china and crystal that sparkled under the chandeliers. The view of the city, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, provided a backdrop that no amount of planning could have arranged. But what made the evening truly magical wasn't the expensive decorations or the gourmet food. It was watching Nana dance with Alex's grandfather, both of them laughing like teenagers. It was seeing Maya's shy cousin finally get up the courage to ask Lily to dance. It was the moment when the entire wedding party spontaneously joined Maya and Alex on the dance floor for their first song as husband and wife. "I still can't believe this is real," Maya said to Alex as they swayed together to their wedding song. Around them, their friends and family were having the time of their lives, and Maya could see Richard at a corner table, deep in conversation with her father about business and life. "It's real," Alex said, spinning her gently. "And Maya, I know this sounds crazy, but I think this day turned out better than what we originally planned." Maya laughed. "You think having our wedding almost canceled was a good thing?" "I think," Alex said thoughtfully, "that crisis shows you what really matters. And what really mattered was marrying you, surrounded by people who love us. Everything else was just decoration." "Really expensive decoration," Maya pointed out, gesturing toward the elaborate floral arrangements and the servers who kept appearing with trays of champagne. "True," Alex grinned. "But the best part is still just you and me." Later in the evening, Maya found Richard standing alone on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. She had changed out of Nana's dress and into a simpler white dress for dancing, but she still felt like a princess. "Mr. Chen," she said, joining him at the railing, "I wanted to thank you again. This has been the most incredible day of my life." Richard smiled. "Please call me Richard. And Maya, thank you for letting me be part of it. I haven't had this much fun at a wedding in years." "Can I ask you something?" Maya said. "Do you do this often? Just show up and change people's lives?" Richard chuckled. "Not exactly like this. Usually my charitable giving goes through foundations and organizations. But today felt different. When I saw you handling that crisis this morning, something clicked. You reminded me that the best kind of help is sometimes the most direct kind." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "Alex and I were talking, and we want to find a way to pay this forward. We don't have much money, but we want to help other people the way you helped us." "That's exactly what David Kim would have wanted to hear," Richard said. "But Maya, you don't need money to help people. You just need to pay attention to moments when someone needs kindness." Maya's father appeared on the balcony, carrying 3 glasses of champagne. "Richard, I hope you don't mind me interrupting, but I wanted to propose a toast." The 3 of them raised their glasses as Maya's father spoke. "To Richard, who turned what could have been the worst day of our daughter's life into something magical. And to Maya and Alex, who showed us all that love can overcome any obstacle." They clinked glasses, and Maya felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the champagne. 6 months later, Maya and Alex were settled into married life in their small apartment, still talking about their wedding day like it had been a beautiful dream. But Richard's influence on their lives hadn't ended with the reception. True to his word, Richard had arranged the honeymoon in Hawaii, where Maya and Alex had spent a week in a beach house that was more luxurious than any hotel they could have imagined. But more than that, Richard had become a friend and mentor to them both. When Alex mentioned during their honeymoon that he had always dreamed of starting his own construction company, Richard listened carefully and asked thoughtful questions. 3 months later, Richard's businesses became Alex's first major client, giving his new company the foundation it needed to succeed. Maya had gone back to work at the flower shop, but with a new perspective on the importance of her job. When she learned that another couple was facing a venue crisis similar to theirs, she didn't hesitate to call Richard. Within hours, the couple had a new venue and a story that would become part of their family legend. The experience had changed Maya's view of money and generosity. She started volunteering at a local nonprofit that helped plan weddings for couples facing financial hardship. Alex joined her, donating his construction skills to help build and repair community spaces used for celebrations. Richard, meanwhile, had found something he hadn't expected when he stopped to help a stranger in crisis. He had rediscovered the joy of direct, personal philanthropy. Maya and Alex's wedding had reminded him that behind every business deal and investment decision were real people with real dreams. A year after the wedding, Richard established the Unexpected Moments Foundation, designed to help families during crisis situations. Maya and Alex became the first board members, and their wedding story became the inspiration for helping hundreds of other families navigate difficult times. The foundation's first major project was creating emergency funds for couples facing wedding day disasters, but it quickly expanded to help families dealing with medical emergencies, job losses, and other unexpected challenges. Richard often said that Maya's grace under pressure had taught him more about leadership than any business school ever could. On their first wedding anniversary, Maya and Alex returned to St. Mary's Church for a small celebration. Pastor Williams renewed their vows in the same sanctuary where they had been married, and this time Richard was there not as a stranger offering help, but as family. After the ceremony, they walked to the Grand Plaza for dinner, where the same event coordinator who had rushed to Maya's house that chaotic Saturday morning had prepared a small celebration in the Crystal Ballroom. Do you ever think about what would have happened if we had just had the original wedding at Riverside Manor? Maya asked Alex as they danced in the same ballroom where they had celebrated a year before. Sometimes, Alex said, but then I think about everything that came after. Meeting Richard, starting the business, the foundation, all the people we've been able to help. None of that would have happened if everything had gone according to plan. Maya nodded, looking over at Richard, who was teaching her great-aunt Rose how to use the tablet he had given her to keep in touch with family. It's funny how the worst moments can turn into the best moments if you let them. And if you meet the right stranger at the right time, Alex added. As they swayed together in the ballroom where their new life had really begun, Maya thought about all the couples they had helped through the foundation, all the families who had received unexpected assistance during their darkest moments. Each story was different, but they all shared the same thread of ordinary people discovering that kindness from strangers could change everything. Richard had taught them that wealth wasn't just about money. It was about the ability to create opportunities for others. Maya and Alex had learned that receiving generosity gracefully was just as important as giving it, and that the real magic happened when kindness created a chain reaction that spread far beyond what anyone could predict. Their wedding day had started with disappointment and ended with wonder. But the real celebration wasn't in the expensive decorations or the luxury venue. It was in the discovery that sometimes the most beautiful moments in life come from the most unexpected places, and that the best gifts are the ones that keep giving long after the original gesture is complete. As the evening ended and they prepared to leave the ballroom where their fairy tale had come true, Maya took one last look around. Tomorrow, other couples would celebrate in this space. Other families would create their own memories, but tonight belonged to them, to Richard, and to the reminder that kindness, when freely given and gracefully received, has the power to transform ordinary moments into extraordinary ones. The bride who had been embarrassed had become a woman who helped others find their own moments of magic. The billionaire who had changed everything instantly had discovered that the best investments were in people, not portfolios. And the love story that had almost been ruined had become the foundation for a legacy of generosity that would touch countless lives for years to come.